Over 6 hours on the train from Lviv to Kiev for the equivalent of about 20 euros, and I was heading for the capital, where I'd be staying for the next 2 weeks. Welcome to Kiev! That is absolutely... That's what I call a class station. I'll tell you what. Let's get to the accommodation. Oberon District of Kiev. So this is where I'm staying, and it is in this delightful kind of communist Soviet housing apartment blocks. So as you can see, so I'm going to take a walk around here. I'm just on my way to the tube station. So this is the way I've been walking every day. So let's see what it's like. I'll show you what it's like. So these apartment buildings would have been designed so that there would have been little pockets of communities. So just down the road there, and a bit up there actually, you would have these like small little shopping centres or little rows of shops where people around the local community, they wouldn't have to go all the way into town. They could go into these little marketplaces. But also, you've got a lot of little schools. There's a school just over there as well. You can see like the playground. But everything was designed so that this kind of community would form around these apartment blocks, and then people commuting to work, commuting into out of work, they would have this sense of belonging in these like communal homes and communal areas. Look what I've just picked up. A lovely case, as the Polish would say, pierogi. These are the Ukrainian versions, so they're called Veronika. I'll put it here. God, I'm bad at this. But walking around. So it's Sunday today. So Friday, usually during the week, people go to work quite early because they have to go into the centre. So it takes roughly about 30 minutes to get there. And so they go into the centre very early in the morning. They don't come back until about 6, 7. So it's always packed. Like everybody's coming home from work. Then Friday night, people were just gathering, And they also, hang on, another side note, they always roll these things up, and the cats always sleep in them in this hot sun, and do other stuff in them as well. But Friday night, people gather around and they just sit around the gardens and stuff like that, and buy some beers and drinks and hang out with friends. The babushkas all just sit and gossip, and the people, they unwind after a hard week's work. And then Saturday comes round and everybody's like relaxing and drinking, and then they usually go out in the centre of town, the younger people. And then Sunday it's a bit more calm, a bit more quiet. And the thing is about these communities as well, usually families will live together. So you always see, always mum and daughters, or dads and sons, or something like that. You'll always see like... Lost my train of thought. Let me just skip. Be walking with the daughters, and then also the mothers will be walking with their young girls. I mean, it doesn't matter how old anyone is. Like in the UK, I think you get to about 18, or you get up to about 15, and you can't bear to walk with your parents. But here, everybody just kind of walks together. There's a lot of mutual respect between the generations, and it's kind of like, okay, I take care of you, you take care of me, kind of thing, which is very sweet to see. So you'll always see a young woman, no matter what age, whether it be... Exactly, look at this. Like, they all live together, it's expected. So I was talking to someone the other day, and he goes like, of course, I would never put my babushka, my mother, in a home or anything like that. So a lot of the family end up just living together, which of course would be less common in the UK, I think. But I quite like it. So behind me is a very famous statue right in the centre of Kiev called the Maidan, or Maidan. But and this was the site in the winter of 2014 that large-scale protests against the government happened. They started off small, and when the government attacked these protesters, then mass outrage across the country, and eventually I think 1 million people poured into this space here in the centre. And eventually, so if you saw the episode when I was in Lviv, there was a memorial to the Heavenly 100, and this was the 117, I think, people who whose executions or like murders were ordered by the government at the time, and they've been memorialised, and on all these rusty plaques here are the information telling all the tourists in both English and in Ukrainian about what happened here. And the tragic thing was that, so 2013, 2014, in that winter, the Ukrainians tried to fight to reform their country. And then later that year, 2014, 2015, Russia attacked Crimea and the eastern parts of the Ukraine. So, you know, they were dealing with two enemies, the internal enemies and the trying to fight for their independence against Russia. You can see this tent over here. So they just came up to me and asked for some money for the Ukrainian army, and they specified, they knew I was a tourist obviously, they said specified it's for the Ukrainian army, not the Russian. And they've got this sign that says help save Ukraine. And if you can see over here, just on this little bridge, and it says Day of Remembrance of the Victims of the Crimean Tatar Genocide, 1944. So there's a lot of comparisons in these informations. They've got the early history of like the 40s and 50s, Second World War, Soviet Union, and of the 2013-14. So they're making a lot of comparisons with the brave heroes of the past and the brave heroes of, well, 2013, 2014. But it's interesting what they were saying was that 1 in 6 adults in Kiev participated in the Maidan protests. And as you can see, they've got remembrances everywhere over here. Спасибо. I then headed to the other side of the city where the Expo Centre were putting on an exhibition for the 35-year anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster. So this is a classic piece of Stalinist architecture, and you'll see it's everywhere on here. Unfortunately, they're doing a lot of construction around the place, so it's not the most photogenic right now, but look, you can see, zoom in, the little communist symbols, the hammer and the sickle. And obviously Ukraine has tried to distance itself from its socialist past, but well, you can't really knock down these massive buildings. You can get rid of mosaics, you can get rid of flags, and statues, but buildings like this you can't knock down. So, you know, these are the few things that you see around Ukraine or Kiev. Maybe if you go more rural, obviously, but around Kiev, these are the only things you'll really see of the communist symbol. Having recently watched the Chernobyl miniseries from HBO with Jakob in Poland, it was astounding how much the detail and accuracy they got from real-life footage to the actual making of the TV show. The exhibition itself was incredible to see. I loved it.
Dean Reynolds, ABC News, London.
This is Roger Peterson. Until the accident, there were 50 nuclear reactors operating in the Soviet Union, generating 11% of that nation's electricity.
Found some lovely Soviet murals for you all. Check this out. The industry. And if you noticed, he's wearing a traditional shirt. And always in these photos, you'll have the hard-working men and the women with the headscarves, but you'll always have like a child, a younger generation looking up towards the current one. Yeah, you've got the beautiful women and the good-looking men. And we've got one here of the revolution, 1917. You know, again, you've got like the current generation, the men and the women coming together, and then you've got the admiring younger generation looking up towards great deeds of those who are doing the current deeds, inspiring the generation. We've got one here that's a bit more typical, and that represents like the whole unity of the USSR, of socialism. And so you've got this one. So you can see Lenin in the background, and you can also see the different types of people that represent the different countries and nations and federations of the USSR. So you've obviously got the Slavic kind of woman, but you've also got kind of like the Central Asian countries. You can see the Soviet flag, the flag of Belarus. You've got all these regional flags of the Soviet Union. It's the unifying power of the Soviet bloc. And so this is a very Stalinist building right here. I'll show you the outside, unless I already have. I'm not sure how I'm going to edit this. But yeah, it's absolutely... Look, even the roof is a star. Walking on my way to meet with the editor of the Kyiv Post, I ended up stumbling across this crowd of people just all standing around. I ended up talking to a guy who explained what was going on. So I was just talking to a man. There's a lot of police outside in this building. There's a bill trying to be passed on whether they can sell the land of Ukraine or the farmland of Ukraine, it's basically they're protesting against it, and you know there's a sign there saying it was an act of genocide, you know, trying to get rid of the Ukrainian land, it's the death of the country. So it's a very decisive bill, I'd say. But you know, Ukraine has this issue where a lot of the farmland, I think it's about 25 people, own most of the farmland in the country. So reforms need to be made. Getting a bit too political maybe, but yeah, reforms need to be made. So I guess this was one of the solutions that we're going to try and do. But yeah, it seems to be not going over very well. And specifically, I think the bill is trying to make it easier to break up the oligarchic monopolies on farmland. Because, you know, Ukraine, former breadbasket of the Soviet Union, a super fertile land, the black soil, which it has in this country, is famous. And yet, it produces per hectare or something like that less crops in the USA. So it's a shame. but it's interesting.
Це раб, мігрант, це ніхто.
Це вони так вам сказали?
Хто ви? Ні, я так сказав.
Ні, а чого так кажуть?
Kyiv Post, which is the English language, I don't know if it's the only, but it's the main English language newspaper in the country. I was looking at the back of it, and there's an interesting piece at the back here. It's the Ukrainian Dutch Tulip Festival of 2021. So basically for the months of April and May, the Netherlands sends over 100,000 tulips, and they put it in Maidan square or centre, and each 1,000 tulips represents one of the heavenly 100. You know, the people who died. But take a look at the. You've got the traditional Ukrainian costume, and apparently the traditional Dutch costume. Very, very glamorous, beautiful women. And you've got this guy looking very happy with himself. But I don't know if there's any Dutch people going to be watching this. But is the traditional Dutch outfit that usually that kind of provocative? Maybe I'm being a prude actually, but I think that's quite. I don't know if is that what you wear, or is that just something like the Ukrainians have kind of done? Because no way she's Dutch. That's obviously two Ukrainian women, and this guy going like, quite funny. They're quite funny.